It's Alex Bekovic. There's so much coming in on Twitter that it's hard to scroll back if I don't get something. Stuff coming in all the time. There'll be 100 new tweets every time you refresh it, every couple of minutes. I'm sure that the number of you have sent in questions and we haven't got around to them. I just hope you're persistent. Why do I go barefooted if there's so many dangers in the bush? From Shelley. No, there are not that many dangers. Sherry, not Shelley. Sherry. Are you a medium cream or a full cream? They're not that many. When I talk about things, it might sound like it's pretty bad, but it's not. I go barefoot because I love the feel of the earth underneath my feet, the different textures of planet Earth, the energy of planet Earth, the energy of the universe and nature that I live in, the vibration of everything around me. I like to be connected, centered. I like to be... I am a part of it. I don't mind a little thorn every now and then. I try to be careful. I look to see if there's snakes or scorpions at night. I need to get myself a new scorpion torch, but that helps a lot. Ultraviolet light makes scorpions iridescent, almost like disco colors. We used to put that special paint on the walls of our parents' garages when we had home discos in the 70s, listening to things like Bustard, Slade, and Rolling Stones, the Beatles. And then we put a black light on, and the walls would brighten up in the most beautiful colors under ultraviolet light. Well, scorpions do the same thing. They don't even need the paint. Ow. But it is going to cross the road shortly, and I want to be there too. Okay. But I remember when I was facing dialysis, I was sitting, actually I guess you could call it, I wasn't even end-stage renal disease. I was still on my way there, and I went to visit my nephrologist, and I was sitting in the waiting room, and there was a chap who was one patient ahead of me, and as with many doctors, appointments run into each other, can't be helped, especially doctors who take care of their patients very well, can't help but run over their time limit, and so patients get sort of pushed back a bit. I found that you can find a doctor where your appointment is at 11 and you only get to see him at 11:30. It's a doctor who cares about the patients. But anyways, Dr. Margolius, just before this chap went in to see him, he was telling me, we were chatting about our conditions. I was where he had been, and he was telling me how wonderful it was having had a transplant and how everything was just so new to him. All of a sudden, there was just so much possibility in life. And at the time, I was deeply depressed. I was staying in the city because I couldn't work work in the bush at the time, and I found it very difficult to although it lifted my spirits, I found it very difficult to envisage a time when I would have to go through a transplant, and most importantly, what would happen afterwards. Anyway, to cut a long story short, almost 11 and a half years ago, I did have my transplant. I went into renal failure, had my transplant, and within 8 months I was up in Kenya doing what I love to do, and since then I've done some incredible things. And so I'm in my 12th year, and I want to just help anybody who is facing this problem, anybody who is not a problem, this hurdle in life, anyone who is very unsure of what their future is going to be like. I think just to have faith that one day that phone call will come and that will be a life-changing thing for you. Just trying to think, Heather, it must be about 3 years by now, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe even 4 years since Heather's transplant. So a big shout out to, in particular, a hospital in Pennsylvania that's been watching the drives. To Heather. Gloria, who is also, Gloria's not going through a transplant, but Gloria, one of our Zoomies, is, I found something very special. It must be a sign. Not much. I suppose if I had to walk around in a bigger area, switch the lights off somehow, put the lights on. Feathers from different birds. This is the feather dropped by the killer. This is the killer's feather, and this is the victim's feather. Bunch of feathers. This was a bustard. This was an eagle. That make a noise, a lot of noise. I need to find a place where I always wear a feather in my Land Rover, like a feather in my cap. Maybe one of the upper wing or secondaries. Yeah, maybe a secondary. This is from possibly a buff-crested bustard. These feathers have been plucked from a bird. I can feel where there's been saliva and things on it. This is another perfect example of a feather that has been plucked by an eagle. That's broken. The shaft of the feather is broken. You could see how an eagle must have grabbed it by its beak and snapped the shaft of the feather as it was pulled out of the bird. And there's a whole cluster of feathers from the breast of the bustard. So I would imagine that, I know this is an African hawk eagle. It's a feather that's a little bit damaged on the edges, and that's probably because of the hawk eagle diving into, this is a primary, by the way. This is probably one of the leading primaries that if it's on, and it's from the right wing, It's sort of towards the front of the wing, and this is a feather that takes the weight of the wing. It's also a feather that helps with lift and flying, or a flight feather, in other words. But it's a little bit damaged probably from striking birds in long grasses and in bushes and things. The tips of feathers. So it's a feather that was ejected by the body of the eagle, much as like we lose our hair. And it must have fallen out when this eagle killed this bustard. It'd be nice to see if I could find other remnants around here, but it's getting a bit late. Want to get closer to the Ari Dam. Could have plucked it a little bit and then flown off with it, or sometimes if it's prey that's very heavy, they'll actually walk it. They'll take one talon and they'll hold their prey in one talon, and they'll walk and then drag it, and then walk and drag it, and they would possibly drag it either into the shade somewhere, depending on what time of the day they struck at it, or could have taken it up into a low tree to feed on. Could have fed on some of it to lighten the carcass and then flown away with it. Maybe they're chicks. There's an African hawk eagle's nest somewhere on the way to Bustard Dam. I must have a look to see if the same nest is still used. But I have a resident pair of African hawk eagles that live at home, and I'm very familiar with them because on most mornings the guinea fowl at my house wake me up because the hawk eagles are terrorizing them. Hawk eagles are fantastic hunters. They're bird hunters, and they all hunt, not all, but they hunt as a pair. They're a kind of eagle that are monogamous, and each member of the pair has a specific function in the hunt. One of the eagles will fly a circle in thermals just above the tree line and make itself quite visible. You'll find squirrels and the go-away birds, the grey go-away bird or the grey lurie, they shout at them. The francolins freak out and dive for cover. The guinea fowl rattle. The guinea fowl complain bitterly. But the male, usually I guess the male, she's stronger, she's bigger and stronger. I don't know if there is a tactic to change when it comes to hunting, that one does one thing all the time. But what happens is you have one always visible, and the other bird will come in below the tree line, below the tree canopy, or fairly low down where it can't be seen. And while the one mate is distracting the prey, the other one will come in and strike. There are a number of eagle pairs that do that. Most eagles, I think, however, most eagles are more solitary in their hunting strategies. But I know the black eagle and the African hawk eagle are two eagles that do hunt as a pair, as a team. Beautiful birds, African hawk eagles. I love them. And the pair that I have at home are actually quite accustomed to me, especially when I'm walking around. They're not too fond of vehicles if they're in a tree close to the road. But they know that when I'm on foot, they're not in much of danger, because I have only love for them. Got a couple of other small raptors that live around me that I know very well, and they seem to accept me. There's a juvenile spotted eagle owl that comes and sits in the around the fireplace, and I know it's there because the hornbills and the luries and the waxbills complain a lot. And then there's also the little pearl-spotted owlet, a youngster, not a sub-adult, I'd say, probably a youngster from last year. He's left them alone while I'm away. At least when I'm there and he's there in the night time eating my hellos, I can open my door, I'll go outside and I just greet him and he moves off. Of course, I like to think that when I'm greeting them that the intent is there more than the words, because I don't expect an elephant to understand my language, but most certainly the intent, and sometimes you just have to open your mouth and elephants will become shy, because as a human, he doesn't really want to wait around and see what I'm going to do. Us humans are somewhat inconsistently behaved when it comes to elephants, so they just don't know where we're coming from.